shape that should not exist. Black wing, wider than a football field, gliding through hostile skies without a sound, without a signature, without permission. For over 30 years, the B-2 Spirit has been the only aircraft on Earth that can strike any target on the planet within hours, from the middle of America, and leave without ever being seen. It has cracked open wars. It has ended standoffs before the first shot. It has flown nights so long that the crew ate 3 meals in the cockpit before they saw the target. Tonight, we walk through the missions that turned a $19 billion experiment into the most feared aircraft in modern history. From the first bombs over Serbia, to a 44-hour marathon into Afghanistan, to the underground vaults of Iran that only this wing could reach. This is every mission of the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. In the spring of 1999, NATO launched Operation Allied Force to halt the Serbian campaign in Kosovo. The Serbian air defense network was dense, layered, and Soviet-trained. Modern surface-to-air missile batteries were expected to hunt any package that entered the sky. The Serbian integrated air defense system stitched together long-range SAM radars, mobile short-range launchers, and passive electronic listening posts into a single kill web. Every emitter fed a central plot. Any aircraft with a normal radar cross-section would light up multiple sensors within seconds. To slip through, an attacker had to erase its signature across frequencies simultaneously, not just visually vanish. B-2 had never flown a combat mission. It had never dropped a bomb in anger. Its first war was going to be the deepest, most defended pocket of Europe. And Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, halfway across the world, was going to be the launch pad. At 2 in the morning local time on March 24th, the first 2 Spirits lifted off Whiteman. Each carried 16 2,000-pound joint direct attack munitions in its rotary launcher. The mission plan called for a straight shot across the Atlantic, aerial refueling over the Azores, penetration of Serbian airspace, delivery on high-value fixed targets, and return. Total planned duration, 31 hours. The aircraft crossed into hostile airspace under complete radio silence. Below, Serbian radar operators saw nothing. B-2's flying wing shape scattered incoming radar energy sideways instead of returning it. Its engine exhaust was cooled and buried above the wing. Its skin was treated with materials that absorbed rather than reflected. To the ground network, an empty patch of sky drifted overhead. At the initial point, the weapons bay doors opened for less than 8 seconds. 16 JDAMs fell in a tight ripple pattern, each guided by GPS to its own aim point. Command bunkers, bridges, an airfield, all hit within meters of the planned coordinates. The doors closed. The aircraft turned home. Not one Serbian radar had generated a track. Not one missile had been launched. B-2 had opened a war and left before anyone knew a war had started. 2 years later, the world would ask this aircraft to do something no bomber had ever done: fly halfway around the planet, and then stay there. On October 7, 2001, Operation Enduring Freedom opened over Afghanistan. The nearest friendly air base was thousands of miles from the targets. Land-based fighter cover was scarce. The Taliban had no meaningful radar network, but the terrain and distance were brutal. B-2 was assigned the opening salvo. Not from a forward base. From Whiteman, Missouri. Straight through. B-2 Spirit is a subsonic flying wing built around 4 features that make this mission possible. First, its low observable coding and geometry hide it across radar, infrared, and visual bands. Second, its 2 internal weapons bays each swing a rotary launcher capable of carrying up to 16,000 class munitions in JDAM configuration. Third, its unrefueled combat range exceeds 6,000 nautical miles, extendable indefinitely by aerial refueling. Fourth, its 2-person crew station is designed for endurance missions with a fold-out cot, a chemical toilet, and a microwave for warm meals. The first Spirits took off on the evening of October 6th. Each flight had 2 pilots and a fold-out cot. 900 pounds of frozen and prepared food went into the cabin. The route ran north across the Atlantic over the UK, into the Mediterranean, across the Middle East, into Afghan airspace. Refuelings happened over the ocean and over the desert, in the dark, with tanker crews who had never flown alongside a Spirit before. Each contact lasted 20 minutes. Each disconnect meant another 6 hours of flight before the next drink. Over Afghanistan, the aircraft ran their bomb pass at high altitude. Weapons bay doors opened. Ripples of JDAMs fell on Taliban command posts, ammunition depots, and airfields near Kandahar and Mazar-e Sharif. Each pass took under a minute. Then the return leg began, but not to Missouri. Fuel and crew rest requirements pointed the aircraft toward Diego Garcia, a British atoll in the Indian Ocean. Engines never shut down on the ramp. A fresh two-person crew climbed the ladder, took the seat, and immediately taxied for takeoff again. Total elapsed time from Whiteman to Diego Garcia, 44 hours. Became the longest combat bombing mission in aviation history. If Afghanistan proved the Spirit could go anywhere, Iraq was going to prove it could open a war. By March 2003, Iraq's air defenses had degraded but were still lethal near Baghdad. The plan for Operation Iraqi Freedom called for a rapid decapitation of leadership and command targets in the first hours. Speed and precision mattered more than mass. B-2 was assigned the highest value fixed targets inside downtown Baghdad, presidential compounds, communication nodes, intelligence headquarters. Targets buried under concrete, surrounded by anti-aircraft artillery, and expected to be defended to the last minute. On the opening night, 27th March, 4 Spirits crossed into Iraqi airspace from bases in Diego Garcia and Whiteman simultaneously. Each aircraft carried a mix of JDAMs and larger 2,000-pound penetrators optimized for hardened structures. Baghdad's air defense operators saw a sky full of cruise missile tracks. Tomahawks streaked in from ships in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. Tension split. Batteries lit up their radars, revealing themselves to suppression aircraft. While the surface-to-air network was chasing missiles, the Spirits crossed overhead unseen. Weapons bays opened. Precision-guided bombs fell on the Presidential Palace complex, on the Ministry of Information, on communications relays across the capital. Inside the target zones, the 2,000-pound JDAM penetrators are designed to punch through several meters of reinforced concrete before detonating. The delayed fuse, tuned to layer count, creates a downward shockwave that collapses the deepest command bunkers rather than merely scorching the surface. This lets a single sortie eliminate a hardened facility that a squadron of dumb bomb aircraft could not touch. Over 45 aim points were struck in one night by 3 Spirits. The Iraqi air defense network never generated a valid track on any of them. By sunrise, the leadership targets in central Baghdad had been dismantled. The war was less than 12 hours old. The next 2 decades would ask the Spirit to do something different. Not to open wars, but to send messages that stop them. 2011. Libya. Muammar Gaddafi's regime was cracking down on its own uprising. NATO authorized Operation Odyssey Dawn to enforce a no-fly zone and protect civilians. Gaddafi had a large, if aging, Soviet-supplied air defense inventory, including SA-5 long-range missiles and hardened aircraft shelters at his main air bases. The opening move had to eliminate his ability to fly. If a single Libyan fighter got airborne, the no-fly zone would collapse before it started. On the night of March 19th, 3 Spirits departed Whiteman. 15-hour flight across the Atlantic. Refuelings over Spain. Reentries across the Mediterranean coast. The targets were 45 hardened aircraft shelters at Gardebia airfield near Sirte, plus command and control nodes. Each shelter contained a Libyan fighter or attack aircraft. Each was reinforced concrete, buried, blast-doored. Weapons bays opened over the Mediterranean approach. Each Spirit released a stream of 2,000-pound JDAMs. 45 separate aim points. 45 separate hardened shelters. Triple pattern from a single high-altitude release. The bombs guided down by GPS in near-vertical trajectories. Each penetrator punched the roof, delayed a heartbeat, and detonated inside the shelter. From the ground, 45 shelters exploded almost simultaneously. Libyan fighter capability at Gardebia was reduced to 0 in a single pass. The no-fly zone was operational before the sun rose. Not one Spirit was tracked. Not one was fired upon. The world was beginning to understand something disquieting. The Spirit did not have to be seen to change the outcome. Sometimes it did not even have to strike. March 2013. North Korea had detonated its 3rd nuclear test in February. Kim Jong-un was threatening preemptive strikes on South Korea and the U.S. mainland. The peninsula was hotter than it had been in years. Washington needed to send a signal that could not be misread. Not a diplomatic statement. Not a fleet movement. Something older, and something that a nuclear regime would understand at a cellular level. On the morning of March 28th, 2 B-2 Spirits took off from Whiteman Air Force Base. They flew west across the Pacific, refueled several times mid-air, entered South Korean airspace. made a low visibility pass over a bombing range at Jikdu Island off the western coast. Each aircraft released inert 2,000-pound JDAMs on a scored practice target. Then, having demonstrated presence, precision, and the ability to reach Pyongyang from Missouri without staging forward, they turned around and flew all the way home. The mission was announced publicly the same day. Photographs of the aircraft over the Korean peninsula went out through official channels. It was the first time in the Spirit's operational life that the U.S. government wanted the world to see it. The message encoded in this flight was multi-layered. Range demonstrated by the Missouri round trip proved that no target on the Korean peninsula was outside reach. Stealth demonstrated by the fact that regional radar coverage produced no independent track proved that no defense could interdict. Payload demonstrated by the practice ripple proved that hardened underground command posts were vulnerable. Every calculation Pyongyang's leadership ran that week now included the Spirit as an unblockable variable. Within days, North Korea's rhetoric began to soften. The immediate crisis pulled back from the ledge. No bombs had fallen on any populated target. No lives had been taken. The mission had used exactly 0 live munitions on any adversary asset. But the Spirit's most decisive night was still years away, and it would not be a warning. January 2017. In the closing days of the Obama administration, U.S. intelligence located 2 large ISIS training camps in the Libyan desert, southwest of Sirte. Roughly 100 fighters were consolidated at the camps, planning operations against Europe. The camps were remote, mobile, and defended by nothing more than small arms. The problem was not defense. The problem was reach. Libya was no longer a stable partner. There were no forward bases. Cruise missiles alone could not cover the target area with the fidelity required to catch fighters in the open. On the night of January 18th, 2 Spirits lifted off Whiteman. 30-hour round trip. 6 aerial refuelings. Ingress from the Mediterranean. Each aircraft carried a full load of 500-pound JDAMs. Over the target area, the 2 Spirits ran overlapping bomb passes. In under 2 minutes, more than 100 JDAMs fell on the 2 camps. The desert lit up with linked detonations. Fighter tents, arms caches, vehicles, and command elements were struck simultaneously across a 2-kilometer footprint. Roughly 85 fighters were killed in the first pass. The remainder scattered into the open, where follow-on aircraft picked them off. The Spirits turned north, refueled again, and returned to Whiteman before the sun rose on the American Midwest. Every mission until now had shown different faces of the Spirit. Range, precision, silence, reach. But its most demanding night was going to combine all 4 at a scale no bomber had ever attempted. June 2025. Iran's nuclear enrichment program had accelerated. The most sensitive centrifuge halls were buried inside the Fordo fuel enrichment plant, dug beneath a mountain south of Qom. Israeli and U.S. analysts assessed the site as invulnerable to any conventional weapon in the Israeli inventory. There was exactly one weapon on Earth designed to reach it. The massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound bunker buster carried by a single aircraft. That aircraft was the B-2 Spirit. The Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP, is a 30,000-pound guided bomb built for one purpose, reaching deeply buried command and enrichment facilities. Its case is hardened nickel-cobalt alloy. Its warhead carries roughly 5,000 pounds of high explosive. Its fuse is programmable, allowing the bomb to count concrete layers as it penetrates before detonating in the target chamber. Its published penetration is over 60 meters of hardened earth and concrete before final detonation. Only the B-2 Spirit is currently certified to carry it, 1 per weapons bay, 2 per aircraft. On the night of June 21st, 7 Spirits departed Whiteman Air Force Base under the codename Midnight Hammer. It was the largest B-2 operational strike in history. The flight path ran east across the Atlantic, over the Mediterranean, refueling repeatedly, then into a corridor cleared by fighter and electronic attack support. Each Spirit carried 2 MOPs, 14 bombs total against the Fordo enrichment complex, plus additional strikes on Natanz and Isfahan. Iranian air defenses did not detect the ingress. As the Spirits arrived over the target area, decoy tracks and jamming from support packages saturated Iranian radars. The Spirits released their weapons at high altitude in a precisely timed sequence. The MOP impacts at near vertical trajectory at supersonic speed. It punches through the mountain overburden at over 300 meters per second. Inside the shaft it has drilled, the delayed fuse counts through concrete layer transitions. At the target chamber depth, the warhead detonates. The overpressure inside the enclosed volume rises past the survivability threshold of any centrifuge cascade or human occupant. This is the only conventional weapon in existence capable of doing this. 12 MOPs struck the two main shafts at Fordo, staggered in impact sequence to progressively deepen the crater. The two remaining MOPs hit ventilation shafts to seal escape routes. In parallel, Tomahawk cruise missiles from a submarine hit surface facilities at Isfahan. The strike lasted 25 minutes over the target area. All 7 spirits egressed. All 7 returned to Whiteman. 37-hour round trip. Not one aircraft was fired upon inside Iranian airspace. Post-strike imagery showed the Fordo enrichment halls collapsed. The site's operational capacity was assessed at 0. Every mission you have heard about tonight was flown by an aircraft that came off a 1988 production line. There are only 20 of them in the world, and each one has done more over its lifetime than entire fleets of ordinary bombers. The B-2 Spirit was born in the late Cold War as a nuclear penetrator and became something its designers barely imagined. It opened Kosovo without a scratch. It flew Afghanistan for 44 unbroken hours. It cracked Baghdad in a single night. It froze the Korean peninsula with a photograph. It broke a mountain in Iran that nothing else could touch. 20 aircraft. 30-plus years. Every mission a message. This walkthrough helped you see why One Flying Wing rewrote what a bomber can do. Hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives on the aircraft, ships, and weapons that shape the modern battlefield, and drop a comment telling us which Spirit mission you want us to break down next.